For practice at exercise 4.9, evenSumMax, we're going to write a method named evenSum. So we'll just make it a public static method. Public static will return void because we're just printing evenSum. I don't think we're taking any parameters, so that's going to be our header. We'll prompt the user for many integers, and we're going to print the total evenSum and maximum of our even numbers. So we're going to prompt the user for a certain amount of integers. That means we'll come in here and we'll do a system.out.print because we want the user input on the same line. We should have quotes surrounding this as well. And then we'll have a space in between here. Now we do need a scanner because we are taking user input. So we'll do scan. We'll call input and set equal to a new scanner where inside of the parentheses, the parameters, we're passing in system.input because we're getting user input. Now we are going to need to store the amount of integers. Actually, we don't need to store the amount of integers. We could just use a for loop and we'll run it. We'll do for, and we'll do int a is equal to 0. And we're going to run this as long as a is less than input dot next int. So basically what's happening is that the user is going to input a number because we have this next int here, and we're just going to compare it. And then we're going to do a++, and then we are going to be inside of this for loop. And then we're going to continuously print this out. So we'll do a system.out.print, and then inside of here, we'll print next integer, where we are prompting the user for another integer. Now, after we prompt the user, we're going to need to store this value because we're going to need to do a lot with it. So what we can do is we're going to say current is equal to inputs.next int, and we'll end this line. I'll break this up a little bit because it's pretty long. And so the value that the user is going to input is going to be in here. We only care about the even numbers. So we need to check if it's even. So we're going to say if our current modulus 2 is equal to 0, this means it's even. So we're going to be inside of here. Now, if it's even, we're going to need to add to our sum. So we need to create a sum variable up here. We'll do int sum, and we'll just initialize it to 0. So inside of here, we'll do sum plus equals because we're adding the previous one, and it's equal to current. And then we also need to see if it's even if our current value is greater than our max value. So we are going to need a max value. We will do max is equal to integer dot, and we want to change that value. So we don't want it at the max value because that'll always be at the highest. So we're going to set it at the min underscore value. So what we're going to do is say if our current is greater than our max, we are going to be inside of here. And so now we have a new max, obviously, because current is greater than our current max. So we're going to set our max equal to our current. We're going to end this if statement. We're going to end the outside if statement, and we can also end our for loop. Once we're done with this, we just need to print out all of this right here. So I'll start off with this. We're going to do a system.out.println because we want to print this all in one line. We have evenSum as our string. This should have an equals space. And then we're going to append to this our sum. So we're just going to have sum in here. We can then end this line. Next line is going to be very similar. We just do a print. Instead of evenSum, we're going to have evenMax. And this is going to be our max value. And then we can end our public static void, which is a method. So we're just going to submit this, and we have some errors because we cannot find current, and that's because I never initialized current. So we are going to have to make our current be an integer right here. We got to declare it and initialize it right here. And that's going to be used in here, in here, and in here. Another error that I am noticing right now, and it's going to give us an infinite while loop, or I'm sorry, an infinite loop and an infinite loop for all of these, is because I put the input.next int inside of here. You're actually not allowed to do that. You have to have it underneath out here, because if it's in a header, then it's not going to execute properly. So what we need is we need something to store it in. We're going to do int, and we will call this answer. We'll set it equal to the input.next int, which is going to be the answer for this. And then we're just going to have this be less than the answer. So what we corrected so far is that we need to declare current, which we never did. And then we need to store the user input inside of something to use it in a for loop header, because we can't just go into our for loop header and look and get the user input. And it makes sense, really, because if we have this a is equal to 0 and then we do this comparison, well, we can't really compare it because we have nothing to compare it to yet. So once we've corrected that and ended the line properly, we can click submit, and then we passed 3 out of 3 tests. So that is how we would go about solving for this exercise 4.9 evenSumMax.